Hello and welcome back to the channel of Motorbike Nonsense, and today I'm testing the Honda Goldwing just because I think it's one of those bikes that bikers think they know about, because obviously it's famous, they think it's lardy, they think it's expensive, and they probably know that it's got a reverse. And to be honest, that was the extent of my knowledge about the Honda Goldwing, which is why I've booked one in to review. So let's get cracking and find out what more there is to Honda's legendary Uber Tourer. Yeah. Right, I'm going to give you a quick walk around first. There's a lot to talk about, but don't worry, we will go riding in a bit. Now obviously, this Goldwing came out in 2018, and it was quite a bit different from the one that went before it. It was a lot lighter, a bit sportier, a bit smaller. And they've made some changes for 2021. They've improved the audio on this, but there are two versions. There's this, which is the basic one, and then there's the Goldwing Tour, which has the throne back there, a top box, and just a bit more kit. Now, neither is cheap. So this one is a non-tour and it's got a DCT dual clutch gearbox, and this one costs £24,399. You can get a manual one for 1,400 quid less. If you want the big one, the throne, that'll cost you £30,700. If you go DCT, otherwise you can take £3,100 off and get a manual one for something like 27 grand. So it's a flipping expensive bike, and well, there's a lot to it, such as the heart, which is the 1833cc flat six engine, which has 125 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 170 Newton meters of torque at 4.5. And obviously it is shaft drive. It's actually got a single-sided swing arm, but you can't see. Two fat exhausts, linked brakes, massive brakes, because it weighs 380 kilos, this one, and some of them go up to 400 kilos. So it is a bloody heavy bike. Now, the front suspension isn't your traditional fork. It's kind of this two-girder thing with a single shock up there, and you've got a normal kind of rear shock as well. Whichever version of the Goldwing you get a 21.1 litre fuel tank, although, to be honest, even when this has only got 20 miles of range left, I tend to get about 150 miles, I can only get 13 litres in. I should be getting 250 miles to a tank, so there's probably either a problem with the fuel range readout or me just being an idiot and not being able to get the fuel in it. While we're talking about fuel, let's talk about one of the Goldwing's many quirks. To fuel it up, you have to press this, which opens this little side cubby. Then you press this fuel tank button, which opens this, and then you unscrew the fuel cap between your legs. Yeah, it's a three kind of button operation to put petrol in it, which is a bit weird. Right, I suppose we should talk about the looks a little bit. This one, the non-tour, has a slightly shorter but still electrically adjustable screen, and that goes up and down quite a bit, and to be honest, is one of the best screens I've ever used. On a bike, I feel cocooned even though I'm 6'3". This one is called Deep Mud Pearl Metallic, which is such a Honda thing to call your colour mud. Anyway, it's grey mud, but it's quite nice. You've got these orange flashes down there, up there on the engine, and kind of like orange stitching on the seat that matches it, and a little 1800 bit there in orange as well. You've also got these kind of, I don't know, they're not quite crash bungs, they're kind of plastic bits here on the exhaust and on the other side as well, which I don't know if it's just there to save all the bodywork in the event of a slow speed spill. You've got a little badge there that says it's a dual clutch. The panniers, they're 30 litres either side, they're built in, they're non-removable, and I mean, they're pretty easy to use once you get your head around them. You just press this little button here, and that is your space in there. Now, the only weird thing I would say about these is they lock based on the key and the proximity. So you'll never go up to this with the key in the pocket and find it locked, because it will always open. So you can't check it's locked unless you throw the key in a hedge and walk up to it from afar. The back looks like the Honda NSX hybrid supercar with those kind of wingish lights. These twin exhausts, which actually have two exits in each one. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, so it's actually really got four little exhaust tips, and it sounds a little bit throaty, quite interesting. We'll get onto that. It's a 200 section rear tyre on a 16-inch wheel, and it's a 130 on an 18-inch up front, so all a bit unusual in the tyre size department. Massive pillion seat, really comfy front seat as well. You've got this cubby hole here. For your mobile phone, there's a USB plug in there, so you can use the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a little bit of a faff to set up because you have to have a Bluetooth headset paired to the bike, your phone plugged in, and I've only got it working once, to be honest. When it works, it's great, but you have to turn your headset on, plug your phone in and turn the bike on in a very specific order. I had to look at some forums to work it out, and I've since forgotten the order. But it does have built-in sat-nav, which is, it's fine actually. It does the job. It's a bit low res. It takes a little while to warm up, so it's a bit reflecty. There's my hand. I can do, there goes a little dog going to eat the Goldwing. You've got an analog speedo. There's no digital speedo that I found. Analog rev counter, revs to 6,000. Little warning bit down there to tell me the side stands down, and it also tells you your gear and your riding modes. And there we go. I've just filled this up and it's saying I've got 154 miles of fuel. I think it should be getting more like 250, but there we go. I do apologise for the reflections. It's a little bit sunny today, which is very rare. So in terms of riding modes, you have a couple and you use this little switch here to flick between them, and you don't have to shut the throttle or anything. They just change the kind of throttle mapping and the DCT aggression. So you've got Sport, Economy, Rain, Tour. So Tour is where I normally leave it unless I'm riding quickly. Then I'll flick it into Sport just to kind of sharpen the gearbox up a bit. But as with all Honda DCTs, you can use this little minus button on your thumb to shift down gears manually, and there's a plus one there. So you can go up and down the gears on your hand. It's actually quite fun to do when you're in sport mode on a country road. You bang it down using your thumb, it shifts really quickly, a little blip of the throttle automatically, and you're there. Now these buttons here will look a bit intimidating. You've got heated grips. I think you'd have heated seat, but this bike hasn't got it on, and these all control the screen and the audio and stuff. This button switches between the audio from the bike going to a headset or the built-in speakers, because it's a Goldwing, obviously it has built-in speakers. And that's pretty much it. You put the screen up and down here, volume up and down there. These control the menus and just repeat what this knob does, because you can't use that on the move. You have to use these. The horn is fantastic. It's so loud. It's a car horn. It's not a motorbike horn. It's a dual tone one, and it sounds, well, it's very, very loud. You've got cruise control over there. It's not radar guided. It's just normal cruise. Now, this button here, if you pull the front brake in really hard, and your engine's running and you're neutral, you press that, and then you can use the minus button to reverse the bike and the plus button to go forward up to 1.1 miles an hour. So it's a crawling thing. It's called a walking mode, and that's really useful, the reverse as well as the forward, for just getting in and out of tight spaces. But the DCT slow speed control is really good, but they're massively helpful on such a heavy bike. Jesus, what haven't I spoken about? I've been talking for hours. There's so much to this bike. The front suspension, you can see like at the top of it there, and these kind of bobble up and down with the bumps in the road, but you don't really feel the bumps that you can see, if that makes sense. It's a weird feeling. Right, that's enough waffle from me about the Goldwing. Let's just go and ride the thing and find out if it's any good or if it's a big blancmange that's rubbish. Right, welcome to the Temple of Comfort, which is where I worship now. I'm going to take you out for a quick ride on the Goldwing. Now, the first thing, if you've never in one of these, is that you'll probably be a bit intimidated by the size of it and the weight of it, and the fact it is all a bit different from most bikes. But it's easy really. The key goes in your pocket and you turn it on using the twiddly knob of power. And then it's a case of hitting this, and that engine kind of clicks and thuds into life. And then you've got to get rid of some infotainment screen stuff, as if you're in a car, to say that I take responsibility for any accidents I cause or deaths that I may experience. While I'm on this horrible, slightly slopey gravel car park, I'll show you the party trick of the Goldwing. Pull the brake in quite hard, hit that button down there, and it thuds. And then you hold the minus button and it goes into reverse, and the more I hold the minus button, the more it will reverse. That's as fast as it goes, and if I want to I can creep forward by using the plus pedal. Probably not ideal to do it in a gravel car park, but it gives you confidence. If you park awkwardly or come to a stop awkwardly on a slope, you know, on a French high street or in the Alps, you can reverse this up a hill. It's easy. I wish kind of more bikes had that, to be honest, because there's always that awkward moment, isn't there, where you have to think about, oh, am I parking uphill or downhill? Is it going to fall off the side stand? Don't need to worry about any of that. Also, you've got a handbrake, which is down there. To get out of that, I just kill the engine,
start it up again. Probably a better way to do that. And then into D with my thumb, and we are in tour mode, which is just your normal average Joe Goldwing mode. And by the time you're doing 3 miles there, you can get your feet up on the low foot pegs. This thing has such impressive low speed balance. It is genuinely, well, I'm grateful for it for a start, but it's just really easy to ride at slow speeds. I could just imagine like some crazy Japanese policeman doing a gymkhana on this and winning because it's so balanced at slow speeds. And look, I'm doing 20 miles now. It's already shuffled up into 4th gear. I think this bike does actually have start stop like in a car as well, but it's turned off. You have to go in some menus to reactivate it, but I'm okay without the engine stopping when I come to a standstill. But yeah, slow speeds, I mean, you feel the mass, but it's down low, and once you've been on it for like half an hour or so, you suddenly feel very confident just putting it where you want it to at slow speeds. And I've kind of filtered on this through the M25 traffic, and I've been absolutely fine because the mirrors are the widest bit of the bike. You think, oh, I've got panniers on the back, but they're narrower than the mirrors. Right into a 50 limit. There we go, 50. It didn't bother shifting down from 4th because I'm in tour mode, which is the most chilled out mode. I'm going to put my screen up. I wonder if that'll ruin the GoPro angle. Oh, hello. Yeah, I think that might ruin the GoPro angle a little bit. But there we go, I'm doing 50 miles an hour. I'm in 7th gear. I'm doing 1800 RPM. And my first slight niggle with the bike has appeared. The indicator switch, you get used to it really quickly, but it isn't half buried in all these buttons. It's kind of physically the furthest one from you. It's in a little button cave, but it takes a little while to find. Other niggles that I've had, I'm just getting the niggles out of the way because it's going to be largely positive. That mirror glass has got a clip broken on the back of it, so if you adjust it, it can fall out, which isn't very Honda. And the tyre pressure monitoring system has flashed its warning lights at me on almost every other ride, and I've checked the tyre pressures, they are fine. This is a problem I've always had with Honda cars as well, the various Civic Type Rs I've run. They are very temperamental, the tyre pressure monitors. They kick off all the time saying, oh, you've got a puncture. Occasionally I have had a puncture, but not in this case, and it seems like the Goldwing has similarly temperamental tyre pressure monitoring system. Other than that, it's been faultless. It's just been dead easy to live with, and when you're on a dual carriageway like this, you can whack the cruise control on and then set it with your right thumb. He says, there we go, set it, and I could spend probably, I reckon, 48 hours on this bike without getting off. It is ridiculously comfortable. The butt comfort is really good. The knee angle, I'm quite tall at 6'3", my knees tuck into these cutouts just about fine. I wouldn't want to have any more leg going on because then I would hit the plastics, but I'm a tall bloke and I'm absolutely fine on it, and the screen goes up high enough to really protect me. And usually screens, when you're as tall as I am, don't work perfectly, but this one is bloody good. Honda really has nailed the whole ergonomic comfort of this bike. There's a really short stretch to the bars, but not uncomfortably short. You can just rest your wrists on the bars when you're on cruise control, listen to music on the speakers, and chill out. It is as relaxing and as comfortable as you would want a Honda Goldwing to be. I could only be more relaxed if I had dolphins squirting opioids up my bum with their little bottle snouts. But yeah, I'm happy as Larry, frankly. Anyway, I'm going to get some 70 limit so I can prove to you that it is comfortable at 70, and then we'll do some twisty roads, and we can talk about one of the most surprising things, and that is the fact that this handles really well for its size. Asterisk, caveat thing. Shifting down manually with my thumb paddle to get it into 3rd for coming off this roundabout. The dual clutch does a decent job, but sometimes you just want manual control. And on the power. Okay, that is a little bit faster than I perhaps should be going. Stick the screen up a bit more. There we go. That's the screen at its highest. That GoPro probably can't see me now, but yeah, up to 70 miles an hour. And I'm pretty well insulated from the wind. I'm not completely cocooned. If I was 2 inches shorter, I would be, but you know, it's not bad considering, as I've said. Now, the ride on this bike isn't quite the magic carpet BMW GS ride that you might imagine. you do feel bumps and lumps in the road, and particularly sharp bumps will still jolt you, but by and large it's above average. It's quite plush, it's just not, doesn't filter out every last bit of the road, and I think that's simply because of the weight that the suspension is having to deal with. It's 380 kilos, it's a lot to ask, and if you're two up, you will be feeling bumps in the road. Your pillion might get a bit of a sore bottom, but I think only adventure bikes really ride better than this. It's certainly a whole lot comfier than a naked or a sports bike. Obviously, I've talked about the wind protection, the weather protection is astonishing, as you might hope. But yeah, mirrors are great apart from the slightly broken one. They are so stable, even at silly speeds, and you can fold them both in. However, when you fold the right hand one in and you've got the steering lock on, the mirror glass can touch the end of the front brake lever, which is not ideal. I think you'll agree. You could smash that mirror glass with your front brake lever if you were being a bit of a half-wit. I'm not going to do my usual dive out inside this roundabout, because that's the next thing we have to talk about. In terms of handling and brakes, the brakes are probably the least dynamic part of this bike. Don't get me wrong, the lever is super sharp. You basically rest a finger on it. I usually just rest the finger on the top of it and you get enough braking power to haul you down. It's only when you are properly hooning this on back roads where you'll find there's a limit to the brakes, where you pull them and the amount of retardation does not get any greater despite pulling it harder. Because it's a brake-by-wire system, it's linked brakes, but there's definitely a point where you start to have to use the back brake manually to help slow you down. And I know using back brake to slow you down isn't what you normally do, but you have to if you really are going for it on this, and I mean proper like ragging it. Normal riding, the brakes are absolutely fine. It's just when you start exploring the handling and going quickly that you need to be aware that the brakes have their limits and they start flashing the hazard lights and all that kind of stuff when you start getting a bit sporty with it. Anyway, I'm stuck behind a Range Rover, as is usually the case in Surrey, so I'll see you in a bit on some proper twisty roads. Back in a second. Is that Morgan still there? Yes. Many things that I want. Okie dokie, I'm about to get to my twisty fun bit of national speed limit, and this exposes a little bit of a flaw with the Goldwing as well, and that is the DCT gearbox. While smooth, quick shifting and everything else, doesn't always give you the gear that you want when you are braking into a corner, and therefore you don't always get the engine braking that you expect. So what you can do is you can put it in sport mode, which really does kick it down a couple of gears and force it to hold on to gears longer. Great, but then you've also got sharper throttle response, and it can be too sharp on bumpy roads and you find yourself kangarooing a bit. I wish Honda would let you separate out throttle response from gearbox response, but anyway, that is one of my whinges with this. So yeah, you do want to flick between sport mode and tour mode if you want the gearbox to do what you want it to do. Otherwise, take control with the paddles, and that's kind of the workaround for all of the above whinges. I just wish you could separate things and create a custom mode, but then that'd probably get even more complicated and blah blah blah. So going for an overtake, you prep the gearbox with your thumb, knock it down a gear or two, and then don't overtake because there's a junction, and that is naughty, overtaking across junctions. It's just quite likely to get you killed, really, I think. But this is good in a way because it means I can floor it in first gear and you can hear the Goldwing. It is proper quick when you're on it. I know 125 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot, but when you gas it in first and second in sport mode, it really does deliver a pretty socking great gut punch, and there's this sense that this big heavy bike is moving faster than it should be. It's like driving a Lamborghini SUV. It is that kind of feeling, physics happening. Now in terms of cornering, it does feel really stable when you've got it on a line, and it does turn in quicker than you think, but you have to get quite physical with the bars. But when you do, you can really hustle this thing and you end up in this beautiful flow down twisty roads. Now I would say one thing you do need to do is you do need to anticipate turns, braking, potential hazards more than on other bikes, because as I said, the brakes can take a bit of work to get you stopped, so you do just have to think about things a little bit. But once you get into the habit, you end up riding it differently to other bikes, but it's still very enjoyable. And as I said, yeah, you just end up going down twisty roads really quite quickly still, not worrying about decking it out, just carving up the road, but you're turning in perhaps a bit earlier with a bit more bar pressure and a bit more looking up the road for things that you might have to stop for. But it's a good bike, and I don't think it's a bike that you would ride somewhere thinking, oh no, there's a twisty road there, I wish I was on something else, because you would have got there in complete comfort, and it does a decent job of tackling a twisty country road. So well done, Honda. You've made a bike that slightly defies physics and is a lot more enjoyable to ride than any of the people at your local bike meet who will look down their noses at Goldwing. As I said at the start of the video, lots of people will think they know Goldwings, but unless they've ridden one, they don't know jack. Anyway, back to you, Tim, for an outro on this wonderful thing.
So there we have it, a kind of fairly in-depth walk around and riding review of the 2021 Honda GL1800 Gold Space Wing. In conclusion, I've been very impressed by it and very surprised. I think this hustles a lot better than you would think given the weight, and obviously it does have limits, but you have to be really going some to find them. And the way it flows down a twisty, bumpy road is phenomenal, like not even given its size, it's just very entertaining. But at the same time, it feels different to any other bike because of its length, because of its weight, because of the tech. It's a different riding experience entirely. You have to anticipate things a lot more. The brakes, you have to use the back brake a lot more, things like that. But it's still very rewarding. Don't go thinking that this is going to be a bit of a pain in the arse once you've cruised to the Alps, once you're actually on the twisty roads. This will actually be quite a lot of fun, and once you've mastered the gearbox, found the right settings for you, got used to the paddles and things like that, it is a blast. The engine is astonishing. It is just, it's kind of surreal really how much torque it has and how it works so well with the DCT just to provide this constant thrust. It is a wicked, wicked bike, and obviously it's hugely comfortable and it's got all the mod cons. Downsides, some of the tech is a little bit hard to get working. The Apple CarPlay, Android Auto looks great on paper, but it's one of those things that you'll have to get into the rhythm of plugging things in, turning them on in the right order to get it working. But if you own the bike, you'll get used to that, right? Filling it up is a bit weird. You have to press 3 different things, and I've only ever got 30 mpg out of it, which ain't great, giving me a supposed tank range of 154 miles. I've not actually run it dry because I don't fancy pushing 380 kilos back home. But otherwise, it is, you've got space for it outside your house or in your garage. It is an astonishing thing. Obviously there's a price to pay for that, but you are getting basically the ultimate touring motorbike. And it's just, it's a great thing to live with. If you've got really short, weak legs, perhaps have a test ride first and get used to the reverse and forward crawl thing. But otherwise, really balanced, easy to live with. I've enjoyed it. I was intimidated at first, but once you get rolling, it's like, what was I worried about? This is great. Honda, you've done an astonishing thing. You've turned a big, heavy bike into a really enjoyable daily rider, to be honest. I wouldn't want to commute into London on it, but I've been filtering around the M25 and it is fine. The mirrors are the widest bit, even with the panniers on, so you can go through gaps and easily see if you're going to fit. Right, that's enough words about the Honda Gold Space Wing. Thank you for watching. If you've liked this video, hit like. Please call me a bald twat in the comments and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. There's some cyclists. It's a trio of old men in lycra. They should be on Gold Wings.